Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Prime Virtual Global Forum's Eastern Session 1, Best Practices for Integrating the SDGs in Teaching and Research. My name is John Katsos, Associate Professor of Business Law, Business Ethics, and Social Responsibility at the American University of Sharjah in the United Arab Emirates. I'm joined here today by four of our colleagues from universities throughout the Eastern Hemisphere: Associate Professor and Prime Coordinator Farah Azmat of Deakin University in Australia, Priya Sharma, Prime Ambassador at the School of Business, Monash University in Malaysia, Dr. Jason Sargent of Swinburne University of Technology in Australia, and Dr. Yaprak Anadol of University of Dubai, Dubai Business School in the United Arab Emirates. Our four colleagues will share some of their institution's best practices for integrating the SDGs into teaching and research and discuss their impacts on student learning and engagement with sustainability. This session will last for approximately 45 minutes. Each of our colleagues will speak for 10 minutes. First, they'll introduce themselves and their institutional context, and then they'll dive into their experiences in integrating the SDGs into teaching, research, or both. The panelists coordinated beforehand to ensure that their contributions are each complementary to one another, so I hope you'll stick around for the entire session to get the best idea of how you might be able to integrate the SDGs into the teaching and research of your own institution. Though this session is pre-recorded like the others, the panelists and I are live watching along with you, so please feel free to engage with us during the session using the chat function. So without further ado, I'd like to ask Professor Farah Azmat to start us off on her experience of integrating the SDGs into research at Deakin University in Australia.
Sorry, what's this thing? So is this going on? Sorry, sorry, Jason, sorry, I messed it up. Should I start again?
Yeah, you could try again. I would say just share your screen and you're good to go.
I saw some message from you, but anyway, I just go. So start again, yeah. So hello, everyone. My name is Farah Azmat. I'm an associate professor and prime coordinator in Deakin Business School. I'm also one of the contributors of the SDG blueprint. And in today's session, I will draw on my learnings of acting as a SDG blueprint coordinator. And I will talk about three main things that I would like to share with you today. Firstly, I will talk about the current trends of embedding SDGs in research across business schools. Second, I will talk about some of the issues that we need to consider for embedding SDGs across research. And I would like to conclude by discussing how we at Deakin Business School are embedding SDGs across research. In particular, I will share the example of Create Research Center, which is creating a lot of impact. We know it's now well established that business schools have a lot of have significant roles to play in terms of advancing the SDG agenda and also to embed SDGs across teaching and learning, research and partnerships. But if we look at business schools' journey to embed SDGs, we find that there has been a lot of emphasis and a lot of attention of embedding SDGs across curriculum, but this is not necessarily the case with research. While there has been, there has been focus of embedding SDGs across research, it's starting to grow, but still it remains very fragmented. It still remains very ad hoc, and it's mainly driven by individual academics, particularly with their own passion and individual commitment. So this is something that is being supported in the existing literature, and this is also was confirmed in the data that we collected for the SDG blueprint. So in this slide, the next slide, I'll very quickly share some of the common but current trends of embedding SDGs in research in business school. So firstly, I will talk about institutionalization of SDGs. So in the data we collected, we found that there was top-down commitment from senior executives like managers, executive deans to embed SDGs across research, but that was not necessarily the case with bottom-up, employees working at the bottom level. So we need to have that built up. We also found that SDGs were pretty much still remained in the periphery. They haven't been integrated in the core of key documents like vision statement or mission statement. Building on that, we also found that there was a lack of SDG focused research strategy for systematic embedding of SDGs in research. So we had a business schools research strategy focused on sustainability, but they were not necessarily linked to SDGs. In terms of approaches, we found that mainly it was driven by individual academics. So there were individual pockets of excellence. There were research centers, research groups are emerging. And we also have some business schools are doing mapping of SDGs to see where they stand, what are the particular strengths in terms of embedding SDGs, what are their weaknesses. So that sort of approach is going on within schools. In terms of research focus, I would like to say that most of the business schools are normally working to align their normal research outputs with SDGs, but they also are working on having a broader understanding of SDGs. They want to localize the SDGs in relation to their local stakeholders. Some of them are engaged in research to integrate SDGs in the curriculum, but there has been less focus on SDG trade-offs and synergies, which is really important. And also there has been less focus on data collection, storage, and analysis, something again very important, particularly in terms of developing countries, but hasn't been received that much of focus. We also found that resources were allocated in terms of time, funding, allowing staffs to attend events and conferences related to SDGs and Prime. Another key fact that we found was impact assessment of SDG research was emerging, but still was in a nascent stage. Building on this, some of the issues that we think is really important for embedding SDGs across research is a building of awareness is absolutely critical for both top-up and bottom-up commitments. So we really need staff to understand how their research relates to different SDGs, how it commits to, how it relates to different SDGs. If we could do that awareness building, it will lead to institutionalization of SDGs in the core documents of institutions. And if that could happen, that could incentivize SDG research as well. Resources are extremely important, as we say, as we understand. Impact assessment measures need to be developed. We need to capture what the SDG strategy research is doing, what sort of impact it's making, and we need to capture that, but we also need to develop the measures of impact assessment. We need to use SDGs to develop partnerships with the government, with the non-government organizations, as well as not-for-profit organizations. And there's also a need for sharing of experiences and learning when it comes to, SDGs, like we need to learn from each other. That's extremely important. Now, very quickly, I'll share what we are doing at Deakin Business School here. So in Deakin Business School, the SDG research is driven by both individuals and also at the organization level through research units and centers. Moving on from 2020, SDGs have formed an integral part of the research strategy. They are integrated in our key documents. So we at Deakin Business School, we have 4 broad overarching themes that we have established in year 2020. And you can see that these 4 themes, they relate to different SDGs. And when we have a research center or research units, they need to align with these broad themes, and they need to report on their SDG contribution. So in this way, SDG is being institutionalized in the research strategy. In Deakin Business School, we also allocate resources, very important, and we have a huge focus on how can we develop and leverage partnerships to embed SDGs across research. And in the next slide, I will discuss the example of a CREATE Center. So it stands for Center for Refugee Employment, Advocacy, Training and Education. It's aligned with the Business and Society team, and it contributes to SDGs 8, 10, and 17. And the main aim of this research center is to support people from a refugee background and help them to rebuild their careers. The center also works very closely with government and non-government organizations to develop practical solutions to integrate refugees in workplaces. It also acts as an advocate on behalf of the refugee community to foster policy changes that support such integration. Now, in terms of how this center is making an impact, in 2020, we know that in Melbourne, we were almost in lockdown most of the year, but the center has still made significant impact. And the main means that the center is making an impact is through career clinics. So one of the main feature of this career clinic is the mentee versus mentor program. So the mentees are people from individuals from refugee backgrounds, and they are being mentored by mentors who are established leaders, established scholars or established business leaders. So they provide skills and knowledge to the mentees, and they also provide them help and support in terms of submitting the employment application, providing them help in terms of building their LinkedIn careers, for example. So these career clinics, they run for 8 weeks. Each of the career clinics runs for 8 weeks, and they not only help refugees to build in their knowledge, but they also help in building their confidence. So in 2020, the Create Center ran 10 career clinics, where 125 mentees and 56 mentors participated. And out of this 125 mentees, 60 of them have already got paid employment, which is a very big impact. And these refugees, they actually came from 21 countries all around the world. In addition to that career clinics, a research Create Center is also developed a number of resources for students as well as employers and tertiary institutions. So in terms of resources for students, they have developed videos where students can actually seek employment in region in Australia. They get practical knowledge of what they need to do when they apply for jobs in region in Australia. How can they do good in interview? So interview practice skills, that sort of knowledge is being provided through the small video clips. In addition to that, they have also developed employer guides, and it's mainly providing a guide for employers to support in employment of people coming from a refugee background. And also they have developed a guide for tertiary institutions to support students from a refugee background and how can they access and succeed in higher education. So they are actually working in different fronts, career clinics, developing different type of resources for students, employers, as well as tertiary institutions. And they have been awarded and recognized in multiple forums, right? For example, in Australian Financial Review's higher education, they got the reward for equity and opportunity category in 2020. The leader or the founder of the center, Professor Alex Newman, he was the finalist in the Emerging Leader Award. They also had this Emerald Interdisciplinary Research Award in 2020. And they were also awarded by AACSB International's 2021 Innovation that Inspire Award. And this is what the AACSB president had to say about this center. So, so it was established in the year 2019, and in a span of 2 years, it has been able to create impacting life of people from different disadvantaged communities, particularly advancing SDG 10, 8, and 17 in terms of reducing inequity, in terms of providing employment opportunities, and working in partnership with government and non-government organizations as well. And in terms
So I'm sorry, Professor Osmond, we're just about out of time. So could you wrap up your section?
Yeah,
so
sure. It's all said. Yes, all done.
Thank you.
So it's just a list of research publications that they have done. That's pretty much I wanted to say. So it's just wanted to reinforce the importance of embedding SDGs across research to create real impact. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was, I think we all learned a lot about how to integrate research and really have an impact on our communities at the same time, not just through peer-reviewed publications, but also through real work on the ground. So thank you so much, Professor Osmond, for those insights into Create and into integrating the SDGs into research throughout Deakin. So now I'd like to ask Priya Sharma to discuss her experiences integrating the SDGs into teaching at Monash University. Priya, you've got 10 minutes. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, John, and everyone here today. Thank you for having me. I'm Priya, the Prime Ambassador for the Monash Malaysia School of Business. We have been a signatory of Prime since 2017, and since then we have developed Prime in the... So for today's session, I would specifically like to share our initiative in integrating the SDGs into the business curriculum in a virtual environment, and the cert course that we have launched as part of our community engagement. So as a Prime initiative in 2019, I developed a capstone unit called Ethics and Sustainability in a Business Environment. Its aim is to cultivate a deeper understanding of the importance of ethics and sustainability and the SDGs in a business environment. It examines environmental, social, and governance issues by applying ethical theories, legislative, and the SDG framework. Now, as we know, a capstone unit is a final year unit that serves as the culminating and integrative experience of an educational program. It is designed to encourage students to think critically, solve challenging problems, and develop skills such as oral communication, public speaking, research skills, media literacy, teamwork, i.e. skills that help prepare them for the working world and life in general. So delivering an SDG-centered capstone unit is timely as it equips students for the next stages of their careers with the knowledge, ethics, tools, and skills to develop a well-rounded understanding of how global challenges need to be addressed in the business context. So my intention was to bring the SDGs into the classroom by engaging students in a learning environment that have strong links with businesses and the industry. However, as we know, 2020 changed the landscape, with higher education stepping fully online and many businesses unequipped for the sudden change. It became a challenge to engage with stakeholders. So I had to think of creative ways to accomplish this in a virtual platform. So to achieve this, I developed a curriculum around the SDG-related topics, implemented authentic learning, and designed unique assessments through collaboration with community, business, and industry leaders. So case-based learning was the first method. Students were required to undertake group presentations on real-world cases relating to SDG issues. A structured framework was used to help students identify the environmental or economic or social issues, evaluate the relevant SDG theories or frameworks, and apply them to the case concerned whilst exploring innovative solutions. A peer review component is also included. So I found this approach quite dynamic because it engaged students in discussions of specific real-world scenarios. It's learner-centered. They built their knowledge and worked together as a group to examine the case. It provided them with an opportunity to see theory in practice, and the peer review component pushed them to take responsibilities and get involved in the learning process. And this assessment, peer review component, centers on developing judging skills of students. Now, this created a vibrant online atmosphere. I was able to retain students' interest and keep them engaged, which is difficult to achieve in an online platform. Now, students learned well and enjoyed the rigorous discussion. Advocacy was the second method. Students were required to produce a video advocacy campaign focusing on SDG 8, advocating decent work for women migrant workers. So this learning method was enhanced through collaboration with an advocacy non-governmental organization that jointly assessed the task with me. The main purpose of this advocacy NGO, as we know, is to promote a specific cause. So it raises awareness and knowledge through activities like lobbying, press work, and activist events. So this is where I translated my own research into the classroom. My research is currently on the trafficking of migrant workers for forced labor into Malaysia. And I wanted to raise students' knowledge and awareness and educate them on the basics of who a migrant worker is. What are the challenges women migrant workers face in the country, and educate them on the different platforms and avenues to assist them. So in this context, I find advocacy powerful when dealing with SDGs. It enables students to think critically about ethical decision making as well as social impacts of the SDGs in a business environment. It empowers them to lead change and to me, is one of the strongest catalysts for quality education. Now, this was a very successful initiative as the NGO called Project Liberate featured 2 of the best videos on their blog, on their website as well, to spread awareness amongst the younger generation. Research-based learning was the third method that I used. I created a conceptual essay question to compare and evaluate 2 types of the SDGs. So I used social enterprise and a corporation. So workshops were conducted by a enterprise in Malaysia called Mereka and Deloitte Corporation. Now, students were then required to refer to them in their discussion, and senior management from these organizations were invited to provide feedback on the assignment. I found this approach very impactful. It provided students a deeper understanding the SDG issue framework into different business models, and it encouraged development of higher order thinking skills when addressing applied SDG challenges in this context. So what I also noticed was that having industry stakeholders converse with students on sustainability and the SDGs has tremendous appeal. So I designed a guest lecture series, which I called the Virtual Responsible Education Series. And in place of traditional lectures, I invited international and local business leaders, academics, entrepreneurs, Monash alumni, and sustainability advocates to share different perspectives to the implementation of the SDGs in various business contexts. What is interesting is, due to the world being in lockdown, global advocates were eager to participate due to the availability of technology. Now, this added richness to the learning process. It inspired students and raised their awareness and knowledge on sustainability and the SDGs. These collaborations further provided direct internship opportunities for these final year students. For example, in one case, I was able to mentor a student through her application process and her interview. She secured an internship in one of the organizations and worked on management of SDGs for CAD data. Now, what is interesting is that this was a student who had not heard of the term SDG or sustainability before this unit. She is now implementing the SDG principles in her own business, which she runs in her home country, and she's also pursuing her honors in the area of sustainability. So this is an example of how education can inspire future business leaders in making some form of genuinely useful contribution to their community or to a field of study. So in the student evaluation for teaching units for this unit, I received very high scores. The scores, qualitative comments, and student emails evidence the success and effectiveness of this unit. And as a result of this unit, I received the Monash Purple Letter for Teaching Excellence and the Monash Business Dean's Award for Prime Education Excellence. So I believe that through authentic learning assessments and by collaborating with industry stakeholders, developing a business curriculum around the SDGs, especially in a capstone unit, this unit was able to successfully explore ways in a virtual platform to drive education that align with the ethos of the prime principles to the United Nations SDGs, in particular SDG 4.7, which is to ensure that all learners acquire knowledge and skills needed to promote sustainable development by 2030, and the mission of the School of Business in Monash University, Malaysia. Now, another initiative that I think is worth mentioning that looks at community engagement is the CERT program, CERTE. And CERT, this CERT program we implemented in collaboration with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR, the non-governmental organization called Fujila, and other private educational institutions. This is a bridge course connecting and equipping refugees to tertiary education. So we conduct workshops on writing skills, interview skills, and basically all skills needed to prepare them for tertiary education. As you know, Malaysia is not a signatory to the Refugee Convention, which is why the education that they receive is always informal. So this program runs for a whole month, and we have been running it for since 2017, but the program came to a stop last year due to the lockdown. And we'll be launching the program in June this year for the first cohort. Now, the impact of this course could be seen between 2017 and 2019. 19 students from the CERT program have gained admission into private higher educational institutions. So this is two of the main programs that Prime has in Monash, Malaysia has tried to continuously develop. And if you need any more information about how we do this, how we conduct these courses, always feel free to contact me. So I'll stop here then. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Priya, for that insightful look into creating an SDG-focused capstone at Monash. Now I'd like to turn to Professor Jason Sargent, who will now continue our look at integrating the SDGs into teaching, but this time at Swinburne University of Technology in Australia. Professor Sargent, take it away.
Right. Thank you, John. It's an honour to be invited onto the panel. I do feel like I'm probably a thorn between three roses, but I'll do what I can. It's been amazing to hear the first two presenters, and I'm going to focus on taking our students physically into locations out of their comfort zone, probably where they didn't realise they were doing so much embedded work into the SDGs until we started to really unpack what they were doing, how they were going about it. Because we started our program, the IT for Social Impact India project, about 2014. So let me start at the beginning. I'm from Swinburne University of Technology. We're a uni that brings people and technology together for a better world. That's our new vision. And I think we do it pretty well, particularly through this project. So we're in Melbourne, eastern suburbs. We're about 10 minutes out of the CBD, not too far as Deakin University. We've been a signatory, an advanced signatory, I think, to PRME since 2018 in the Swinburne Business School. But I'm proud to say and boast a bit that my project was addressing the SDGs in about 2015, 2016. So we may be the first mover for Swinburne, and they followed us on board. So that's really good. I don't have slides, but let me set the scene for you. Imagine if you have been to India, or if not, my students are quite from a privileged background, I guess, quite good colleges, come into university. Most of them in the 10 or 15 that we would take each year would probably be scholarship students as well, in IT degrees and accounting, information systems, and some science and education as well. But most of them have had pretty good backgrounds, and then I take them out of their comfort zone and we land into the authentic real world of Mumbai. So they'll go from Melbourne of 5 million to maybe 15 or 20 million in Mumbai. We'll travel on the trains and we'll be like a Mumbaka. But we're only there for a couple of days because we're embedded in our home away from home for Swinburne is up in the mountains on the border, same state as Mumbai, but up on the border with Madhya Pradesh, the next sort of state north. So we're in a mountain region, indigenous communities. They're called tribal villages. Adivasi is another word as well. So very under-resourced, underfunded. The schools have been set up by a third generation Gandhian philosophy, NGO. And so we work in partnership with them. We live in the village. Some of my students take over rooms in the houses of the village people who live there. We spread out. We go back every year, and so we don't get those strange looks anymore as we walk down the village street and through the markets. People know who are those Westerners? It must be Swinburne. They've come back again and again. What we do is focus on goal 4, 5, and 15. So quality education, gender equality, and life on land. What I do with my students before we get there is preparation, 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 because it is something completely different to what they're used to. They're very technically competent, but we're about to do a cultural deep dive for them that many of them are not prepared for. So it's my job to get them as prepared as possible. Failure is an option in my teaching, so I will overload them into mini projects. And so, for example, the projects could be things we've used like drones. We'll map the tribal villages from above, and we'll use that as data for a geographical information system to support the human rights of the Adivasi who may be threatened with expulsion out of the forest. And so we'll put that into a geographical information system. We'll use VR headsets. We'll integrate the the teaching and go on a virtual excursion for tribal students who would never go to Mumbai or never go to the Taj Mahal. Their local community is where they will live. They very rarely get out of that community. And it's interesting when you ask them and you map them out and show them sort of a satellite image, where they go on holidays is maybe just over the next mountain. And we just take for granted, you know, we travel thousands of kilometers. These tribal students would never get the opportunity to go on a tour of the Taj Mahal, an icon in their own country. So we integrate that into the curriculum. It's a target-rich environment for my students to solve problems. So for example, several of the village schools have no internet. Some of them have intermittent power, but they'll have a curriculum that will ask the teachers to please open your browser and log on to. And so the teacher, the principal would say to me in the first years we were there, how can I deliver my curriculum when I don't have the internet? So we've set up a mobile classroom in a box that's a shared resource and it goes from one village to the other. We're working with Krishi Vigna Kendra, which is the Farm Science Centre in Pal, our home away from home, working on a farmers app. So again, Indigenous subsistence farmers, how they can identify and have protocols for treating pests on the banana plantations, for example. So lots and lots of projects. Students will do the project management around it. We'll have project leads, and I'll just stand back with my colleague and they will run the projects and we'll be there to catch them, you know, if they need it, to guide them. But that's the sort of philosophy that we have, the theory into practice, practice into service, and get that service into their life. Long-standing, longitudinal, we go back year after year, but it's something that's really ingrained that mission into my students. So when they come back, they will always have that thinking, the framework thinking around the social impact through the experience. Farah was mentioning about the impact assessments. And so for our students, how we assess them is through their personal contribution and their personal impact, what the project has meant to them. And we'll do that in like an exit interview type process, where there's no pressure around. We sit around for sometimes up to an hour, just going through what they experienced, how they went about it, and what they can take away from it. So we're really trying to be as supportive as we can, scaffold them with the learning, the preparation, because it, as I said at the start, it's really something completely different to them. You can show a student as many photos or videos as you want, but once they step into the field, that's where the magic happens for our students. We're loving still being in contact with our community. COVID is, as you're probably all aware, is sort of just ravaging through India at the moment. We've lost a couple of lives in the extended project team. So we set up a fundraiser to help out, but we just can't wait to get back because really I tell my students, we've got family there. You just haven't met your Indian mum and dad and your Indian grandparents yet. But we'll do that the day we get into the village. So I'll probably end up there. Thanks, John.
Thanks so much, Jason. That was really great. And it's great to hear about how you're continuing again and again to go back. So the students get, I liked what you said, theory into practice and practice into service. So finally, Professor Yaprak Anadol will discuss integrating the SDGs into both research and teaching at the University of Dubai, Dubai Business School in the United Arab Emirates. Professor Anadol, take it away.
Thank you, John. Hello, everyone, and thanks for having me here. It's an honor to be here. My name is Yaprak, and I'm working as an assistant professor in University of Dubai and teaching business and society courses and various marketing courses along with. At the moment, I'm chairing the PRME committee in the school, and my research area is mostly the consumer behavior and sustainability. When we look at University of Dubai, it is one of the 100 signatories of PRME. It is under Dubai Chamber, so it has a very strong connection with the industry and the government. University of Dubai is a prime champion since 2007 and an academic member of the United Nations GLOBAC in the past few years. Actually, in the University of Dubai, we value sustainability. And with the partnership of the Dubai Chamber, we try to contribute the various SDGs related projects. For example, we have recently, a few years back, we moved to our new campus, and this campus is the first LEED Gold certified green campus in the Middle East. And with the new solar project, we are becoming the first non-zero energy university building in the UAE. And all these activities is reflected also on the teaching and our curriculum development. And basically, we try to integrate the SDGs in our curriculum as a main standalone course, which is called the Business and Society. And in what we try to do with this course, we try to keep it as a mandatory course, that every student are taking the course as a part of their education. And in this course, we try to implement the principles of ethics and sustainability. And we try to teach the SDGs, social responsibility, ethics, and educate our students to be the responsible leaders of the future. And also, as a general education department, an elective course has been implemented, which is solely called as the sustainability course. And we are working on this course to be more one of the core course if there is any chance. And actually, in the Business and Society course, we try to adapt the SDGs into our assessment, into our assignments, and especially aim to flourish student competition. Maybe you heard about it. It became a regular student project for our class. And in this class, the student finds social businesses, and then they who are practicing the SDGs, and then they interview the owners and write amazing stories by using appreciative inquiry method. Through this, the stories that they write is published in the website and have in the reach of the thousands of audience to take as a benchmark. And in the UAE, considering the high expat community, we also give some assignments where the students are asked to find the SDG related issues related to their home countries and propose some solutions to those problems. So it makes the students to relate with their own problems, own country problems, and we allow them, we help them to take some ownership on them. So I think it's a great impact in this SDG integration. And another popular assignment that we are using is we are asking to watch some SDG related videos, mostly an environmental or humanitarian disaster, because we don't have the chance at the moment to take, like Jason, to take them to the real life situation, but rather than we try to bring those issues to the classroom through the pre-recorded videos and, you know, like the movies sometimes. And what we do is we ask them to demonstrate responsible leadership for that issue as a government or business leader or as an individual. And we make the students to relate the issue to the SDGs and ask them as a responsible leader, what could have been done to prevent those issues and what kind of actions needed to be taken next. Also, we try to integrate case studies in our teaching, as the case studies create a great impact on the students. And through the case studies, they see the real life examples and suggest some solutions to those problems. So these are related to the assignments. And another way that we are using is What we do is we invite the faculty from different companies, and especially for the SDGs, a lot of guest speakers are coming from the NGOs and from the society, and we are using the Dubai Chamber Sustainability Network for that. And also we are inviting the UNGC member company guest speakers. And what they do is they talk about their sustainable initiatives, and then they interact with the students. And as most of them are the future employees of the students, so it is creating a big interest on students that they can relate to their own purposes with the organization purposes at large. And these speakers share their inspirations, their challenges that they are facing. And also, we use the student unions and student engagements as a way to teach the SDGs to our students. We involve students to PRME leadership in the university. Student union representatives become a part of the PRME leadership team. The student activities and community engagements are aligned with the SDGs that they learn. Yes, they were already keen to be active with the community engagement. Sometimes they go for the cleaning campaigns, blood donations, breast cancer awareness. They try to promote well-being. They get into the student competition like environmental speech competition, etc. But with the SDG awareness that they learn, they realize, they understand, they realize that they are part of something bigger. They are part of a bigger picture. And with this awareness of the SDGs, they become part of a global movement. So it is an important aspect that for the university student to be a responsible leader in future. Another way that we use is we integrate the SDG. They take the placement in the lead companies, in social businesses and NGOs, especially United Arab Emirates, Dubai is a home as a humanitarian city. There is a humanitarian city has been established by the ruler of Dubai, and the humanitarian organization take their places in there, and our students find placement in this area for their internship. Many of our students work as an intern in United Nations food programs, some charity organizations, Dubai Cares, companies, the lead companies like CHEP, Unilever, and there are many organizations and companies that they are taking place in the Dubai Chamber Sustainability Network and UNGC network. In some cases, instead of the internship, our working students are given the opportunity to do the industry projects. And some students choose their project topic related to the various SDGs. They work on the SDG related cases, and they do some research that makes the company to move forward towards the SDGs. And it's not easy in the institution to implement the SDGs in all areas of the research. Now, when we look at the research establishments, unlike Farah, we are still on the way.
Yeah, sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt, Yaprak. Could you just wrap it up because the 10 minutes is up?
Okay, but there is a lot of way to go. And the university, the institution supports the research establishment, and then the SDGs can be more implemented in the graduate thesis. This is what we are on the way at the moment. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anadol, for that. And I think what we saw throughout, and something I'll take from Dr. Sargent, is really starting with the theory and how to apply, conduct the research and integrate the SDGs into research from Professor Azmat, into practice, which is what we saw from Priya and Dr. Sargent, and then also with Dr. Sargent, and then into Dr. Anadol's talk about moving that into service. We're trying to make that transition. So thank you to all of our panelists. And for those of you who attended the session and engaged with us in the chat, we hope that you'll be able to take these lessons from our colleagues here today back to your institutions. And additionally, we hope that you'll be able to share those experiences with all of us in future Prime Global Fora and describe to us how they went. I know I speak for all of us when I say we're all available. Our email address and our contact information will be available through the Global Forum. And we hope you have a good rest of the day wherever you may be.